I think everyone needs help and they need a team of really awesome people because no one can do it all on their own. And after hearing a mentor talk about it,
What's going on, Next Gen fam? Welcome back to Mentor Momentum with Next Gen HQ. I am so pumped to introduce this week's guest. She is a natural leader and public speaker on innovation, entrepreneurship, and so much more. In addition to her role as a vice president at a global financial institution, she co-founded the Roadblock Foundation to raise awareness and combat the pervasive issue of cyberbullying. Truly a beacon of inspiration and empowerment. We have so much incredible stuff to dive into. I got to welcome her to stage. Bianca, thank you so much for joining us on Mentor Momentum with Next Gen HQ.
thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting.
I'm beyond pumped to dive in, and I want to dive in like way back at the beginning, and then we'll take us through your journey. But talk to us about that 20-year-old version of Bianca coming out of school. What are you thinking about? And maybe what's one piece of advice you would give to that version of yourself, knowing all that you know now?
Well, 21-year-old Bianca started out at a global financial institution full-time, working 70 hours a week. So my junior year in college, I was hired on full-time as a contractor. Eventually, I got a permanent job in another department, and I've been at that company ever since. So I kind of didn't really have a moment where I enjoyed my junior and senior year of college and had that like go lucky free attitude. So with that, the one thing I would tell myself though in that moment is not to care what other people think. And I think sometimes we forget that we can't hear what people are thinking about us, even if it's negative. A lot of time we kind of assume that people are thinking all these things. We overanalyze, we get scared when we hear someone doesn't have the best opinion of us. And it really doesn't matter because the only person at the end of the day that you have to live with is yourself, no matter what happens with family or friends. And I think that it would have been important for me to kind of just get rid of that layer of stress.
Absolutely. And you're doing so much now. In addition to your day job, you're a speaker, you're a leader, you're, not an influencer. We made this clear. That's not the word. You're helping people establish true connection in the world of social, on Clubhouse, on podcasts, etc. How are you balancing all of this in your daily life currently?
Well, I don't think that there's a correct form of a perfect balance. I think that it takes a lot of pushing and pulling and taking pieces of things to make sure it all comes together. And I think that part of that is my mental health wellness. So it is very hard. I believe that in the beginning of the day, it's really important for me to write tasks that need to be done and figure out how I can fit that in my timeline because everything is really unexpected. With my 9-to-5 job and the nonprofit I founded, being the president and CEO of that, if you will, that is my own time that I have to figure out. Beyond that, the startup I'm a part of, plus the commercial modeling and acting, all of it really requires balance. And sometimes there's one thing that needs to be prioritized over everything else. So in the words of my mentor, Jeff Hoffman, also a dear friend, he always talks about in his keynotes, and last time we chatted, it was basically like if something has a red light, then you need to go to that and kind of fix it to get to a yellow light and then a green light. And then like there's always something that might have a red light that you kind of have to go after and fix that. So if it's friends and family that are being in the red light because of your career, like I have to go fix that and make sure that that's okay. But there's no perfect balance. So I'm just learning. No perfect answer.
I appreciate that. And I think so insightful for all of us where I have the same mentality in my life where I'm like, I sometimes like, okay, I'm giving too much over here. I got to like move over here. But I love this red light, yellow light, green light analogy, because I think it really helps you see visually, all right, I really need to, divert my efforts. where they need to be. I want to talk a bit about the foundation that you started, the nonprofit Roadblock Foundation. Can you tell us a bit about the founder story and you know, your kind of mission and message that you're pushing forward that is just so incredible?
Well, thank you so much. It's still a dream to even hear people talk about it, know the name of it. And it's basically to empower people to overcome being cyberbullied. And then the other aspect of it is creating solutions. So helping create a healthier online environment. And that's part of a prevention and detection technique that we'll get to. But empowering people, especially, and then building empathy with people who could be seen as a bully, and helping them understand maybe where they might be a little bit potentially skewed and not knowing what they're really doing. And I think the only way to tackle that head on is with children, to start with. So I'm trying to install programs in schools, and there's more to come on that I will announce. But it's something that I'm going to try, obviously, across all generations. But I think that with children, especially with people who don't have a strong home base, whether it's family or not a secure environment at home, they might not know how to handle a bully. They might even be the victim of bullying from back home. So I'm really hoping to build some kind of empathy-based program and help those who are dealing with the same.
Yeah. No, I so appreciate you sharing. And I think it's such impactful work that you're doing. For our entrepreneurs listening, what advice would you have as you were getting started yourself down, you know, this entrepreneurial journey, and starting your own nonprofit, your own foundation? What are maybe some lessons that you learned along the way, and things that you would, you know, say to first-time founders thinking about, all right, hey, I'm trying to get started today, tomorrow?
I think everyone needs help, and they need a team of really awesome people, because no one can do it all on their own. And after hearing a mentor talk about it, their theory is that you can't be spending time trying to be perfect and doing absolutely every aspect of your business, because you're wasting time doing the one thing that you excel at the most, that you're the best at. Because I can't be an accountant and a lawyer and all of these things that it really takes to build a prosperous company or a nonprofit or organization. And I think that it's important to know that it's hiring the best team, the smartest people you can find, the best in their field, the subject matter experts, and really building the confidence and trust so that they can be empowered to go do what they do best. And then the CEO or the head of the company can focus on what they do best. And I think it's important to just build out a team, focus on mental health, and wellness, because if you're not protecting your energy in your space and you're not doing well, there's no way you can show up for other people or your business or organization or whatever it is. And in my case, nonprofit. But I think that's what I would say. Taking care of yourself, especially.
Absolutely. What are your insights on being able to lead a team and inspire people to work alongside you? I found that, you know, stepping into my first role in kind of the leadership seat, I'm like, okay, this is hard. Like, I just want to do all the work myself. I'm like, I don't even know how to disseminate work. So it's something that I've been learning, and I know first-time entrepreneurs are always learning about how can you start to build your team to really strive towards that same mission as you. What advice do you have in that area?
I think that you have to build words of encouragement. And I think that that's not easy either, especially if you're not doing well yourself. So you kind of have to empower yourself first. So that's the first step. And then I think that it takes inspirational words, just encouraging someone like, you're doing so well. Thank you so much for your work, acknowledging their work, and giving them a little bit of a vision that you have for them to run with, and also making sure that they know that they have autonomy to do what they feel is best, and that you trust them doing that, because no one wants to be micromanaged. I've learned that from corporate America. I will continue to learn that. Nobody likes that, and nobody's going to do their best job when they are under a microscope and being under added pressure. So I think it takes just making sure you're okay yourself and that you can look in the mirror and say, I'm going to do this today, even if it's really, really hard, and encouraging your team to not give up, telling them how well they're doing a job, but genuinely, and letting them run with it. Of course, there's going to be fires along the way. There's always going to be roadblocks. And you're just going to have to make sure that your team and you have a very good relationship, positive, healthy, so that you all can kind of work it out and go through those roadblocks all together and just trust each other.
Absolutely. One thing we love to talk about here, and I'm so keen to hear your answer. We talk about mistakes all the time, because I think a lot of people share the success stories, but not the mistakes that were made along the way. Is there a moment in your, professional, personal life that you remember making a mistake and something you learned from it so that our people can avoid that same trap?
Well, I feel like time management might be something a lot of people might be able to empathize with. Like if you realize you procrastinated something and maybe you had a lot of other priorities that you saw were the priority at the time, or, things just happen so fast that you need to make sure your time management skills are on par, or the red light, green light, yellow light, like all that theory, making sure you're writing down the tasks that need to be done so you don't forget, and making sure they get done. And the non-urgent task can obviously be put to the side. But another thing I will say is to practice mindfulness. So I've had a lot of situations with, whether it's a boss that's very stressful and a micromanager, just different people trying to navigate personalities that are stronger or might clash with yours, or just people that are very negative and hard to deal with. You need to protect your mental space and your reactiveness, because technically, if you don't let yourself and your emotions react, you can compose yourself and then take action in a very professional, positive, chill vibe way. And it will allow you not to react in a negative manner. Obviously, if you're out of control, you get angry when someone's angry with you back, you're not composed, it's not good. So stoicism is a piece of that, and I'm still learning. I'm not perfect. I have emotions, but I think that that's a really, really good tactic to keep in mind.
Absolutely. I want to talk more about that. I mean, you're talking to, a guy who wrote a book on mindfulness in college. So I want to dive in and hear, kind of what has worked for you, and either if it's like proactive practices that you're doing daily to, keep your mindset right, or even just the reactive side of like, all right, somebody tells you something and you're able to now like take that minute. But for all of our people listening who are like, hey, I love mindfulness, I've heard that word 100 times. Like, what can you share that, you're doing to keep yourself at your best game every day?
I'm still trying, not perfect. I think I need a lot of sleep. So if I'm not getting at least 7 hours of sleep, something's off in me. Journaling helps, because sometimes I'm experiencing an emotion. Let's say it's a difficult person who's being negative in a professional standpoint. I have to sit there and like figure out, it's technically cognitive behavioral therapy, but think out that emotion I'm having and that thought, and try and see what's causing it. And maybe it should be suppressed if it's not right. So from a professional standpoint, it could be someone giving me a hard time, maybe telling me I can't do something, and me having to be like, wow, that hurts, that affects me, whatever. But then realize like, wait, where's this coming from? Is this triggering like a reflection of some insecurity I have? Like, why do I really care what they think? Is it affecting me? No. Like, does it matter? Do they have any effect on controlling my outcomes? No. And then like from there, putting a stop to that thought. So I think that's helpful. CBT is, that's the gist of it, but also I'm not a psychologist. I'm not perfect. So I'm really just learning.
I love that. And I think I love the vulnerability and honesty that you share, because I think a lot of people look and they're like, all right, eventually I'm supposed to have it figured out, right? And it's like, no, you're always still learning. And I think that is just inspiring to hear and see. For you, what for you, what would you define as success, and like how are you striving towards that every day? I think people will look up to you and say, yeah, I want some of that. But for you, what is like your definition of daily success, and how are you striving towards that?
I think success should equate to happiness to some capacity, and a lot of people don't see it that way. For me, it's not a dollar sign. It's something I actually have to check myself with. Like if I had a really amazing accomplishment that I had been waiting for years or something, like sometimes I don't feel it. And I want more because I'm always like, this isn't good enough. I need to get to that level. And it's not based from competitiveness. I don't know what it is in me that like constantly needs to be seeing like these goals executed. And so I think that success should be happiness with the small goals, and celebrating the small steps to each of your goals, whether it's the smaller goals, the short-term goals to get to your long-term goal. I really think those need to be celebrated. I like Jeff Hoffman. I know you've had him on your podcast before, but he shares with me, like, he has, and he said it in his keynote speeches, his TED Talks, he has all these friends surrounding him that are the best of the best, and have all this money. But if you're not happy, then what's the point? So it's not about millions or billions to me. It's about making sure I'm happy and that I'm achieving the goals that is my overarching goal, which is to help as many people as I can and make as positive impact as I can as possible. So if I can get a little closer to helping people and hopefully on a global scale do that, that'll be what I consider my success. But I think we all need to celebrate the small wins, little wins, because they're not really small. They should be big in your eyes, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I'm smiling because I think you're reading my journal or like my emails or like everything. This is exactly like one of my themes for 2021 was celebrating the little wins. Because I think similarly, I was like, all right, once I got to this big giant goal, it was kind of just like, all right, now what's next? Versus like being able to have that moment of celebration along the way, and then being able to really thrive and feel good about the work that you put in. So I'm right there with you. I don't know. The jury's still out. You might be reading my diary. I'm not sure, but we had an incredible community member submit a question from Rachel Strauss, an incredible member of the Next Gen ecosystem, who wanted to know that you have a diverse array of experiences, from your day job to acting to modeling to you're now obviously the shit on Clubhouse. Not an influencer. We already went over that one, but. What skills have you learned across these experiences that were most valuable to you that that you're still putting into practice day after day, from these different experiences than most would be able to get themselves?
I have really negative self-talk. So for you to tell me that any of that was done well and that I have a certain skill set that I can share to like help other people is a little bit, uncomfy for me, because I don't think of myself on that level. But what I will say, I think that the one thing I can do is help build relationships. And so I think that it's basically networking, but I don't like to call it that. It kind of has a stigma. But building relationships and solid relationships in any industry or wherever you are is so helpful down the line. Building a community of people that can be, even you're helping. Like I've helped lots of startup accelerator programs, nonprofits, and like little do I know, they come full circle around and help me out in other capacities, give me intros to certain people that are really awesome and can help my career, or you just never know. And it's not about what you can get in return. I would highly recommend never do that from a transactional perspective ever. And that's why I put an emphasis on building relationships instead of just putting a card on someone's desk and just like throwing it in their face and saying, I need something from you. So I think relationship building is key. I think that's how I've made an enormous amount of my connections in the most positive way. I mean, even with Next Gen, it was a LinkedIn ad, and your CEO and I had a chat, and that was really awesome. And we kind of brainstormed together, like, how can we help each other? and look at where we are now. So I think it's just building relationships, having a strong reputation in terms of like integrity. I think that's important. And just being as positive as you can in a way that you're seen as uplifting to others. So that's what I mean by perception. Just try to be mindful of the persona you're giving off, because it also is something that can come back full circle and people will kind of remember about you.
Yeah, I love it, because I think, I've heard people share, your network is your net worth, all of these different, tidbits. But I think this idea of branching beyond that and saying, that you want to build this not just because you're like, okay, great, I now have XYZ in my network, I can hit them up for, this. It's more about just actually being a genuine human being in the world and building those relationships without an agenda, in pursuit of just building relationships. I don't know why I was reminded of, Jeff Hoffman being that one year that he just said yes to everybody. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of like the thing where you're just like, you're there to serve other people. And then if some goodwill comes back around your way, then that's, more power to you.
Yeah, I love that about him. I think that 6 months turned into X amount of years. It was several years. I think it was 5+ years where he said yes to everybody. Great human, respectful. I have so much respect for that man and friend. But yeah, I think so as well. You can just try to also help the startup ecosystem that we're all in. Like, as much as you can help other people, you never know. It's really important to help innovators and people just changing the landscape and being complete industry changers. So
I would be remiss if I didn't ask your thoughts on the startup ecosystem currently. Where are you thinking the next innovation is coming from? What tips or advice do you have for, entrepreneurs out there that are getting started? Given your leadership, your speaking circuit on the topic, your innovation expertise, where do you think things are going and where should people be looking at?
Well, from a technology point of view, I always talk about how I think quantum computing is epic, but a lot of people don't want to talk about that. So I think that people should take a look there at what's going to happen. They say 2025 might be a year where commercial quantum computers will be available. And a lot of people don't realize how many companies are currently working on it. That is a game changer. Cloud computing, obviously, wherever artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, process automation, that whole animal of a category where that's going to go, and how AI and predictive analysis and its sentiments will change, because I think a lot of people are seeing biases in AI in the algorithms. So maybe that'll change for the better, which is hopeful. And there's so many other forms of technology that I'm sure are just crazy cool, whether it be like where SpaceX is going to go, and that kind of technology. Flying cars is cool. And the last I'll say, which I know that you've mentioned and alluded to a little bit, audio-based social media platforms are huge and they're coming, and Clubhouse was one of the innovators in the space to be the pioneers for it. But Twitter Spaces just came out, and Facebook just released their UI for their beta version, and Mark Cuban just came out with his own. So I think that that's also, from a social media standpoint, like the newest age of what our generation is going to see. So we'll see.
Why do you think that is the next phase and so successful? Like, what, obviously you've been in this space, you lead the Clubhouse room, everybody wants to come hang out with Bianca on Clubhouse. What is, what is it about this space that you think is, kind of making it the next big thing for folks, coming down the line?
Being able to talk to anyone, anywhere, at any time of day is so cool. And it's for people for sure that love human connection and are the networking type, like your organization, people like you. I think that it's really cool. But for instance, even from a technology, like where I love highlighting tech founders and interviewing them in my spare time for fun, you can do that on Clubhouse and you don't have to look good doing it. No one can see you. You're just sitting there. You could be anywhere, like hanging out in your PJs, and you're sitting there having a conversation with some of the most epic people in the world. Like, for instance, I sat in and asked a question. I was fortunate enough to be on stage for a discussion with the co-founder of Siri yesterday. And that was really awesome. Like, who would have known? And I've also been afforded opportunities to interview this new Netflix show cast that my friend just like set us up with within 15 minutes. And next thing I know, we're interviewing them like weekly. It's called The Circle. And that's really cool, I guess. I haven't seen the show, but
yeah, come on, that show's insane.
but it's not even that. It's like there's some people I've met that I'm like, oh, you're cash friends of mine, and they happen to be like, you know, a big celebrity Grammy award-winning artist, or they're a UFC fighter, or they're an NFL player, and all these things where I'm like, I don't even see them in that light. I have a friend who's a Rays player, and people will come and fangirl, and I'm like, oh, that's just my friend so and so, like, whatever, you know. It's weird that that's how that can happen, and that's the intimacy of Clubhouse specifically, where a lot of celebrities are on this app just roaming around enjoying themselves, and you wouldn't have had that interaction otherwise. But you wouldn't have gotten to know them as a person in their natural form. You would have just seen them in a movie or whatever, you know. But I really love helping others and spreading positivity, and as much as I can. And that is my happiest point of Clubhouse. Just having people in a room talking about wellness topics like building confidence or spreading positivity tactics, like how to overcome hardships and come out stronger. That stuff is really where I love it. The other stuff, the added bonus of the cool, if you will, stuff, like that's but where I really find happiness is helping others. So
yeah, I love that. Well, Bianca, this has been a true joy, from everything you've shared, your advice for yourself, all the way to your insights into what's coming next in tech. This was an absolute gem. Thank you so much for joining us on Mentor Momentum with NextGen HQ.
Thank you so much. This has been awesome. I really appreciate the feature.
That was Mentor Momentum, sharing life and business lessons from incredible leaders. Looking for more momentum? Subscribe to our weekly Momentum newsletter at nextgenhq.com and check out our other podcast, Momentum Audio, on any of your favorite podcast channels. Now that's momentum.